Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm your host, Michael Lyons, and today we got the number two Steph Curry super fan. It goes Flight Reacts number one, this man number two, intramural RIT champion, Charles Manival.
What up? What up?
Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Now, today, first off, we got to start. Charles has got some heat on right now. He got that
Yep.
Yao Ming Rockets jersey,
Hardwood Classics.
and then I got the Seattle Supersonics KD jersey. Fun fact, me and Charles got these jerseys at the exact same time in New York City. That was a
Yep.
super fun trip. We also know On, our boy On, has the same exact jersey as Charles. Same exact trip, but that was fun. And today we're gonna go over the Warriors off-season guide. But first off, we're still in the NBA Finals. First off, who has been your favorite player to watch throughout the postseason?
Wow, there's been a lot going on this postseason, but as far as my favorite player to watch, um, I think that Tyrese Halliburton is my go-to answer. I mean, as we all know, he hit a game winner in game one against OKC. Um, all the Knicks fans around here know about that game tying three in the Eastern Conference Finals. Um, he's had just some really solid performances, and I think that's almost an understatement, but such an impactful player, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's like one of three or four people that have a 30-point triple double with zero turnovers in
Yeah.
that against the Knicks. And I mean, he's super clutch. I said before the Knicks series that he would take the most clutch player in the league crown from Jalen Brunson. Do you think that is true, or do you think it's still Jalen Brunson's crown right now?
Um, no, I think that that's a very good possibility, honestly. It's especially with his monumental shooting, um, especially end game. I think that just the fact that his team is still able to make different impacts in the finals, it'll be exciting to see what happens. But no, I think that's a very good possibility. Um, I don't foresee anything changing.
All right. And then before we go to a little bit more finals predictions, and gotta end it off with Shea MVP because that was probably the biggest talking point throughout the year. Who deserves the MVP crown? But who was your most surprising team of either the playoffs or regular season or both, if the team made both?
I'd say that my most surprising team this year was going to be Detroit. Um,
Detroit basketball.
as we all know, the 2023-2024 Detroit Pistons were pretty underwhelming to say the least. But I mean, they rebounded, and in my opinion, they had a pretty decent 2024-2025 year. I mean, they got stars like Cade Cunningham, Malik Beasley. I mean, they averaged 25 points and 14 points respectively.
Mhm.
And I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with. Um, Tobias Harris and Dennis Schroeder, they got a pretty solid roster of impactful players, and I think they really cranked it up a notch this year.
Yeah. I mean, it also, I think the biggest thing with Detroit is they're bringing back the old school Pistons days of early
Yeah,
2000s and even 80s and 90s Pistons basketball. And I think it all starts from JB Bickerstaff. He's done an amazing job with the Pistons ever since he's got there.
I agree. Much, much better.
Introduced the dress code, got those guys their first playoff suits, kind of just really made them professionals, which they didn't have that structure in Detroit before that. And you said Dennis Schroeder, I mean, got traded from the Warriors to the Pistons, got bounced around this year from a couple different teams,
For
but
sure.
I mean, he made his impact in the playoffs for Detroit.
No, I agree.
Do you-
100%.
yeah. Do you think they can make another push to the playoffs next year? Or do you think this was a fluke year having the Sixers be really bad due to injuries. There's a couple of teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference that you didn't predict being there before. Do you think the Pistons can still be out of that play-in position, or do you think they're going to be a play-in team next year?
I mean, that's a fair point you make about just it being quite a bit of a toss up with some teams this year. But based on what I saw from the team, I think they will be a playing team again next year. Um, I think that structure, just their overall improvements as a whole, to the way they play basketball, I think they're definitely a playing team next year. Um, I like to see this upward trend they're on, and hopefully, in my predictions, it's going to continue. I
Yeah.
mean, they can only go up, especially now that they seem to have it figured out for the most part.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and their star player, Cade Cunningham, is only going to get better. I mean, he is such great positional size at 6'5" at the point guard position, and even in his first playoff experience, he played his game. He didn't let the Knicks speed him up. Now, obviously, they didn't win the series, but I mean, they played the Knicks, who are just a better team and have
yeah.
playoff experience. But Kate Cunningham, I didn't see anything in there that I should feel worried about going into another postseason run. And I just think they're gonna sit again in the postseason, and then after that, I mean, they're in talks to make some trades this offseason. I saw KD is linked there, Devin Booker's even linked there. So if they make another swing for the fences kind of move, this could be a team to watch out for. Now, we're still in the finals. It's 1-1 series right now. As you mentioned, the Tyrese Halliburton game winner in game one, and then the Thunder bounced back and kind of blew the Pacers out of the gym.
Yeah.
What is your predictions for the rest of the finals?
Uh, it's a loaded question. Definitely a loaded question, Mike. But my final prediction, I'm gonna have to say, is gonna be Thunder in seven. I think it's gonna be a close series. Definitely 6 or 7. I don't foresee any team just running away with it, as we saw in other series. But yeah, it's extremely hard for me to say for sure. Um, there have been many players such as Tyrese. I mean, I just said that Tyrese has been extremely clutch this year, so he's definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. Um, but as far as the Thunder go, I think Shea is a phenomenal leader. He's proven that he could consistently put up numbers these last few seasons, this season especially. Even with, I mean, he receives a lot of criticism, as we all know, just foul baiting. Um, Other certain circumstances were, but that's, in my opinion, that's part of the rise. He's one of the most dominant players in the league at the moment, and I think it's just going to keep translating. um yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I worry about with the Pacers being able to bounce this series back is through the first two games, they've their largest lead is 3 points.
Yeah.
The and they didn't lead at all in game one until the final second where Tyrese hit that shot. That is not a recipe to win a series.
No.
And the Thunder, they played their worst game in game one. So did the Pacers. I'll give them that. They played their worst game in game one as well. It's just the Pacers also have lived on the road in the postseason. They've been a much better road team than a home team. But
Yeah.
if Tyrese can be aggressive in game three and game four, he could extend this series. But I mean, I'm also not counting out the Thunder to just rattle off four in a row and get this series done with quick. I mean, they've been so dominant all year, and it's it is a tough series to still predict, I think, to be honest. I mean, it's very difficult, and yeah, I mean, it's gonna take a lot from the role players of the Indiana Pacers, and it's gonna take a lot from Tyrese Halliburton to give the Pacers a chance in this series, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel that Tyrese Halliburton has to continually step up because I mean, you start slacking against a team like OKC, I mean, they're gonna take as much as they can, especially when you're struggling to score on the offensive side. And that's another good point to bring up. Role players, just as much as Halliburton needs to put in his work, I feel that he needs supplements.
Mm.
Those role players got to hit those shots, they got to make those defensive stops, and maybe they can extend a lead more than just three. But they're definitely so far, no team has really just um came off to me as just taking all the momentum away.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
both
100%.
definitely heavy hitters, and they both definitely have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, even when the Thunder are up by 15, 16 points, it always feels like the Pacers are still in the game because we've seen them bounce back from 15-point holes. And I mean, they bounced back from 15 in game one. And throughout game two, it was like a 20, 25 point lead, but it always felt like the Pacers were getting there and they were in there. I mean, they had two 12-2 runs to end the first game. They had a
Yeah,
couple big runs in game two. They just couldn't sustain those runs,
yeah,
which is the biggest thing.
yeah. No, I
Now,
agree.
now that we've talked about the finals, obviously the leader of the OKC Thunder is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And you say that he deserves the MVP this year. Why so? And what is your argument for him over Nikola Jokic?
Yeah, well, definitely may get some backlash here. I understand that Joker was in many people's favoring, but yeah, I believe that Shea deserved that MVP. Um, he seemed to make a name for himself in mainstream basketball. Not only was he being recognized by more people that are adept in NBA knowledge, but just in general, he was the face of everything. It felt like this year with the Thunder's charge. Um, he's been in conversations left and right. He has not only an improved stat line, but I feel like he's improved as a team leader now that he has more experience. Um, I feel like he's almost a well-oiled machine. Like he has that mentality that he knows what he's going to do when he steps on that court. And I think that that's a very important mentality for a champion contender team.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You saying he's grown as a leader as well as having the growth on the offensive end. I mean, he's been a proven scorer the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And this year he's just continued it. And I don't know if you know the stat, but he didn't play in 24th quarters this whole season. That's how dominant the Thunder were all
Wow.
year. And he
That's
still put up
crazy.
the stat line of 32, 6, and 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Over 30 points. That's crazy.
And I mean, MVP always comes down to either best player on the best team or if you have a historic season.
Yeah.
Jokic had a historic season, but so did
Yes.
Shea. Shea also had a historic season, and they had the fifth best record of all time in the NBA. And Shea also had an impressive season. I didn't like when this race was going on and people were trying to down talk Shea and his 32 just coming from the free throw line. He's proven that he doesn't need free throws to put up his numbers. I mean, game one, he had 38 and he had four free throws.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need free throws. And the biggest thing, obviously, foul baiting is always a conversation.
Yeah.
Biggest thing I look at with foul baiting is proven scorers are always going to look to make their job easier.
Yeah.
And
It's a
what is
part
the
of the game.
easiest shot in basketball? A free throw.
Yeah.
It's literally in the name. That's the biggest thing I think about with foul baiting. I mean, yeah, it might not be as fun to watch, but it's part of the game. I don't ever look at it as like, I don't really ever care if somebody gets to the free throw line unless it's somebody that doesn't do it all the time and then they're getting there for a game 20 times.
Yeah.
Like Benedict Mathurin in the last series against the Knicks, he had back-to-back games where he had like 12 free throw attempts. That was where I looked at it and I was like, this game's getting a little soft. He should not
Yeah.
be shooting 12 free throws. What's your reaction and conversation around foul baiting? Like, what is your idea of it, and does it affect you as an NBA fan watching the games?
Um, I wouldn't say it affects me a ton when watching the games. I mean, as you said, it's not the most fun thing to watch a player shoot back-to-back free throws, but at the same time, free throws are a part of the game, and I hate the fact that fans are criticizing like a player, well, maybe not just fans, just people in general criticizing a player for utilizing his ability to get to the foul line. It's still a part of the game, and at the end of the day, it's working for him, and it's not something that he also has the talent to back it up. Here's the thing. There's a difference between someone who relies on it and someone who uses it as a supplement to their already strong gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
100%.
yeah.
Me and Daniel had this conversation one time, and it was between Jalen Brunson and Shea.
Mhm.
And we said they shoot a lot of free throws. But the thing is, they could score on 90% of the NBA. They
Yeah.
just want to make their job easier. And free throw, it's in the name. It's a free
Mhm.
shot at the basket. And people have to protect or perfect shooting free throws. We've seen people that, like Mitchell Robinson, he can't shoot free throws.
Yeah.
It still takes a skill to shoot free throws.
Mhm.
And it's always whenever somebody is at the top of their game in an MVP conversation, in a finals conversation, that people want to then have a disagreement with it. If
I
Shea wasn't
agree.
in, if Shea wasn't in MVP talks this year, nobody would have talked about him shooting 9 free throws a game.
And nobody really like did before. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. I mean, obviously there's been more free throw shooting this year, but Shea has always been Shea on the offense. I
Mhm.
think that it's more so people like to hate on the come up as far as like MVP talking. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, and just the final thing for it is I always look at a guy like Shea and how people want to hate on him for shooting free throws, but then they'll say that their favorite player is Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or James Harden. And I go, how can you hate on somebody shooting free throws when your player also relied a lot on free throws?
Yeah.
Not saying they fully relied on it, but they utilized it.
Yeah, utilize is a good term.
So
Yeah.
it's just, it's always just it's just the conversation is always the biased fans are always going to go against it. The neutral fans are always going to be in the conversation of they don't like watching it, but they're not upset about him shooting it. And then fans that are for Shea, they're gonna say it's just him being Shea.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
You mind if I quickly chime in
Yeah.
about one last thing about that MVP? Um and now this is not one of my reasons for Shea for me being biased towards Shea to receive the MVP. This is just something I merely noticed that Jokic has won multiple MVPs and in the past. I'm not saying that that's the reason that he shouldn't win one because I don't believe in
Mhm.
that. If someone deserves it, they deserve it. But I will say that a breath of fresh air would be kind of cool to me to see. And also, the Thunder are still in it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I noticed. Not so much a deciding factor, but just something that I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I mean shit. Jokic already has 3 MVPs. I mean, there's always that conversation of like sympathy MVPs or voter fatigue. This year, I don't think it was genuine voter fatigue.
Mhm.
I think last year when Joel Embiid won it, that was voter fatigue because I don't think Joel Embiid outplayed Jokic at all that whole season. So if you were ever going to have a conversation about that, which don't ever really like chime in on those conversations because,
Yeah.
like you said, if you deserve an MVP, you deserve an
Yeah,
MVP.
that's my mentality. Yeah.
But I think if there was ever a conversation about voter fatigue and having multiple MVPs and that's why you didn't win it, was Embiid and not this SGA one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we've gone through the postseason, we've gone through the
Yep.
MVP talks.
Hmm.
Now it's time to get into the Warriors. Now, first off, what was your reaction to the whole Warriors season as a whole?
As a Warriors fan, I don't think it was a bad season at all. A lot of people, obviously, anyone's going to be disappointed when their team loses, especially in the postseason. So I can't lie about that. But at the same time, as far as what our Warriors achieved this year with just the team that they had, I think that there was definitely some room for improvement. But I was also pretty happy with the way we performed. Um, right up until Curry got injured, I was like, wow, we are a pretty dominant team. Contrary to what I initially believed back at the start of the season, I actually think we did a bit better than I had envisioned originally. Um, I think that there were different points in times where different players stepped up, such as Kuminga or Pajemski, where we retained that competitiveness that I've really liked to see throughout the Warriors dynasty run in the past. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say this. When the playoffs started, I was predicting the Warriors to go all the way to the finals. I had them beating the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. That's how much I believed in Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. Now, obviously, it didn't go that way. Curry got injured game one
yeah,
against the Timberwolves, and you guys got bounced out of there. But at that point, I still think, like you said, it was a good season.
yeah,
You started pretty poor. The Warriors
yeah,
were not on anything to start the year.
definitely not.
But then the Jimmy Butler trade happened, and you guys instantly rebounded and pushed yourself into a play-in spot, got into the playoffs, and you were one of the best teams post trade deadline. Now, what do you feel about Jimmy Butler, and what was your reaction to the Jimmy Butler trade? Now, obviously, I know Charles is a huge Andrew Wiggins fan, and obviously that was probably a stinger to not have Andrew Wiggins on the team anymore after everything he's gone through in a Warriors jersey.
Yeah.
Key piece to winning a championship a couple years ago. But you got Jimmy Butler. What was your reaction and how do you still feel?
Overall, I'm still adjusting to seeing Jimmy in a Golden State jersey, but overall, I think it was a good trade. It was it was difficult for me to say that, especially giving up Andrew Wiggins, who I felt was still a really talented player. But I think ultimately, moves have to be made as time progresses. So while Jimmy did have his off games, I believe that he's proven in recent years, yeah, especially in recent years, that he can be a postseason threat to any team. I think he has a great mentality in many situations. Um, I did like to see some refreshing and of the team, some motivation that maybe wasn't there before in the postseason. New faces are always a good thing, and I can't be upset about the Jimmy Butler team or trade, excuse me, especially because the Warriors went from not being a play-in team or just barely being a play-in team to solidifying a position there, which just goes to show that he had a pretty substantial impact on the team throughout the year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, their defense to end the year was amazing. I mean, having two defensive masterminds in Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, and then you have other defensive quality players that like GP2, Gary Payton II, Moses Moody's a really good defender. All those
Yeah.
guys just complementing. having Steph Curry on the offensive end and being able to hold teams when you go through a rough stretch of not being able to score the ball. But you said something, and I just want to have a conversation about that. You said something about Jimmy Butler having a good mindset.
Hear
Now,
me out on this one.
obviously,
Yeah.
obviously, we've seen in the past with every team that Jimmy Butler's been on so far in his career, it hasn't ended pretty. Now, obviously, players could change. I thought, and this is just partially could be a winning thing. I think Jimmy Butler's at that stage of his career where he cares about two things, money and winning. That's all he cares about. He signed that huge extension with the Warriors, so he's good. Now you're a quality team that's always going to have championship aspirations. Do you think that mindset changes from the Miami Heat days to the end of the Miami Heat days, end of the Philly days, end of the Minnesota days, end of the Chicago days? Because he always forced his way out. Do you
Yeah.
think that happens again in Golden State, or do you think he found his home for the rest of his career?
I guess mindset might not have been the correct term. Maybe more so experience in the postseason is what I should have referred to. He has a lot of experience. But even so, I think that his mindset has evolved for Warriors basketball. I think that now that he has his bag, obviously at this point in his career, um, I think that he will have that ring mentality. Um, I just don't foresee him forcing his way out. There wasn't any tall till sign to me throughout the season that this was a temporary decision for him. Um, Obviously, signing an extension reinforces that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think him, Curry, and Draymond, they've all meshed really well in only the
Yeah,
somewhat small sample size we've seen. I mean, him and Buddy Hield are like best friends, and I love
yeah.
to see that because Buddy Hield never ever really in the media, but when him and Jimmy were always having their little post-game press conferences, always messing with each other, that was super fun to watch. Still got love for Buddy. I want to see him get a ring. Maybe not with the Warriors, but I want to see him get a ring one day, especially because Sacramento's not going to get no ring soon. But yeah, I think you said it well that mindset wasn't what you meant, but experience, playoff experience, which Jimmy has been pretty much in every situation you could be in as a player. I mean, he took the 8 seeded Miami Heat all the way to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
They did lose, but he still took them all the way there. He's played against some of the greatest players of all time. He's played against LeBron in the finals, Jokic in the finals. He's been in every situation, and it's just a matter of getting him there again and getting the Warriors healthy again. Now, that is my next question. All three of your players, star players, are aging veterans in this league. Are there any worries about their age and injury concern, especially because we just saw Steph Curry go down with an injury in the playoffs?
Um, yeah, I mean, I know you're familiar probably as everyone else is with that clip of the Curry expressing his like, I'm just getting old, man.
Mm,
He recognizes it, and I think the fans, or at least I, recognize it as well. That I mean, look at Draymond. He's got some gray hairs coming in.
does have them gray hairs and his beard right here.
Yeah, yeah, he's got a silver beard. But
Not much out there.
yeah, it'd be a blatant lie if I said I wasn't a little bit sad seeing our stars get to that point in their life. Um, but seeing an individual such as Steph himself, who not only became a franchise player for the Warriors, but inspired an entire era of basketball, I can't be upset to see that he's getting older. I have similar feelings towards LeBron, more so to just look to what they've accomplished, not what they left on the table. I can't ask much more of a player than like Steph Curry. Inevitably, they're all going to retire at some point. But at the moment, I still feel like we have life left in us as a team. And I think that as far as injuries go, there can be some bit of adapting that can be done to prevent situations such as that. But I mean, it is what it is. It's not necessarily something, it just happens, you know? It's a part of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, adapting, you said that. I mean, Steve Kerr, we saw it in the playoffs. He threw out everybody that was on the bench, played in two of those games against the Timberwolves.
Yeah,
I think he's going to do that a lot more in the regular season.
I
He's gonna
agree.
try and get Curry, Jimmy, and Draymond their rest because he understands as a former player who dealt with some injuries at the end of his career and as an older coach. He's not one of these younger coaches like Ime Udoka or anything. He understands that age is something that's going to affect these guys down the road. And Curry, like you said, he's getting to the end of his career and he changed the game of basketball with his three-point shooting and just who he is. I mean, not even in the US, he hasn't just inspired people, but Curry in like China and in Asian countries, he is super popular.
Yeah,
Like he is their LeBron James over there.
yeah,
And it's amazing to see, and it's gonna be a sad day when Stephen Curry does retire. Same thing with LeBron. Even
yeah,
if you're not a LeBron fan, you're still gonna be like, dang, like should have appreciated him more when he was in the NBA. Now,
yeah.
what do you think the timeline for the Warriors is? Do you think this is the final year that you have a full like 100% championship aspirations? Or how many years do you think you can get out of Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond before it's kind of too late to go for another championship run?
As far as Jimmy and Steph go, um, I don't think this is the last year for them. I think that they could be just as dominant, especially now that Jimmy's finding his home on the Warriors, which is my belief at least. That I think that we can continue for the next couple years to make a solid run at it. Now, Draymond's a little bit of a different story. No hate towards Draymond. He's an amazing defensive player, but on the offensive end, you know, he hasn't been doing a lot in these
Yeah.
recent years. He's definitely not as dominant as he used to be 5, 6 years ago, which is to be expected as players age. But I would say that as far as longevity purposes for the dynasty, I would say that Curry and now our new acquisition of Jimmy have a little bit longer of a timeline than Draymond does. As
Okay.
far as them all together, something would have to be done relatively soon for them to be all three of them, if that's the question that you wanted.
Mm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Draymond, like you said, his timeline might not be as long. Being a defensive guy,
Yeah.
but not having that verticality that he used to have in his Defense Player of the Year awards and just being an all defensive player. He doesn't have that verticality at the rim. He's still a really good on ball defender and a good controller of the defense when he's just kind of sitting back there in a zone or guarding somebody in the corner. He's really good at controlling people, but he doesn't have that verticality at the rim that he can go up and swat somebody. I mean, obviously, we're always going to see him turn back the table a little bit, but he's getting to that age where not having an offensive game besides dribble handoffs and screens for Curry,
Screens, yeah.
it's getting to the point where is he is he that valuable that having him as kind of a liability on the offensive end, but his defensive end is just continuing to deteriorate, and it's just going down every year and every year. Is there a point where it's just we got to move on from Draymond, or does Draymond take the accountability and say, it's kind of time for me to hang up the laces and stuff. What do you think about that, Chuck?
I'd agree with you. Um, but I also don't know if Draymond's the type of player to just hang up the laces. He's
Hmm.
really known to be a stubborn player. So I don't know if he would recognize that for himself. It's definitely not an easy question for me to say as far as like predictions with him.
Hmm.
But one thing, if we do choose to keep running with him in our starting lineup, I will say that one thing that Draymond does have is IQ. He's very, very smart on the court. And while he might not be able to be as physical or as scoring prone as he did in recent years, I mean, experience and IQ is something that doesn't go away as players age. I mean, but I will say that as far as him recognizing it, kind of unsure at this point in time.
Yeah, no, that's you put it really well with experience and IQ doesn't go away. I mean, sometimes we'll get a 5 minute stretch where Draymond looks like he's never played basketball before and he's
Yeah,
out there trying to tackle people, but no, like you said, I mean, Draymond gets a lot of flack for having hard fouls, putting himself in danger of not being able to play games, but his IQ and his defensive mindset and mastermind back there is something that will never leave him, even if he can't guard people. Just having him on the court on the defensive end, controlling the defense. I mean, I look at Draymond as he's gonna be a coach one day. That's how I look at Draymond. Curry and Jimmy, I don't really look at them as being coaches, but Draymond, I 100% look at as being a coach in the 15 years once he's had some time away from the NBA. Because just like you said, the mindset, the experience, the IQ, those things don't ever falter and they don't ever go away for some players.
I think his, as far as you were saying about his impulsivity and his tackling, I think it's more so just his emotional like wiring. He's a hothead, man.
He definitely is a
I
hothead.
think I think that's more so something that as he moves on from the NBA will go away over time
Mhm.
as he gets the age where he's not able to do that stuff anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he's really smart on the defensive end.
Yeah. And I mean, the hothead thing kind of just comes from him being such a competitor,
Yeah,
first off. And also, he didn't have an easy life before the NBA. So
yeah,
those things also kind of just stick with you throughout your life. I mean, we've seen a lot of players that don't come from anything that have those same things.
yeah.
Now, we've talked about the aging stars, but this year saw some really good improvements from some young guys like Brandon Pajensky, Quentin Post in the postseason, and Moses Moody. What are your thoughts on them in Golden State, and how do they fit on these final couple years of championship aspirations?
If you were to ask me at this point in time, like today, what my thoughts were, I'd say they lack there's stuff left on the table as far as them being all postseason threats. Consistency is a huge aspect that I just don't really think is there at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, when compared to different players or different role players on differing teams. Um, with a lot of them not having the most postseason experience, it's tough to just throw them into a championship run. However, um, I do think that the Warriors are, I mean, we have some of the best players that can provide that experience to them about winning and that championship mentality. And it begs that question that all great players really have to start somewhere. So you can't fault them for their inexperience. It's not their fault. But at the same time, definitely Um, there will have to be some improvements, but their different aspects of their game has shined through.
Mm.
Um, if you look, I believe it was game four versus Houston where Pajemski dropped 26 points. So there's different appearances that we see from these players where you're like, wow, these guys are postseason threats. It's just it needs to be continued throughout all the series, which is the hardest part is consistency, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think one of the bigger things is with Steve Kerr realizing that some of these older guys need some more rest. I think getting these guys more run during the regular season will help them. And
Yeah,
also, I mean, first year for some of these guys being in the postseason. Quentin Post is a rookie, and he had some really good highlights. I
he
mean,
did.
also had some bad games, but he shined. And I mean, Moses Moody continues to be consistent. He's kind of just the perfect guy to have on the Warriors, 3 and D guy that when you need him to step up and make a shot, he'll make a shot. When you need him to guard somebody, he'll guard somebody. And AirPods, I mean, sometimes AirPods can have some questionable moments, and
For
I
sure.
don't really like watching AirPods on the court because I don't know why, but this dude always every time there's a whistle, this dude is always in the ref's ear, even if he's not even in the play. Like he's always complaining about something. But I mean, he's an NBA player. He's super skilled. I think that's just him. Some people complain a lot, but yeah, I think the young guys showed some promise. Like you said, getting them some run in the postseason this year was is good for them. And I mean, if you're in the playoffs again next year,
talking talking about AirPods, um, I just want to take a moment and just point out bro's shoe is so buns. I just wanted to point that out. Not a fan of dude's shoe.
I forgot about AirPods. You, what company is he even signed with? Isn't it some
um,
company
I think it is,
like
but
Li Ning or something?
you're not gonna catch me in the pod's shoe. No hate, no hate. But
Yeah, those were not it. But um,
yeah,
yeah,
it's fun.
getting them some run in the postseason this year is gonna help you guys next year or the year after. Um, and also having kind of a humility from the postseason, losing some games against the Timberwolves, losing some games against a young Rockets team, and these guys
Yeah.
playing amazing in some games and playing amazing in other games. It helps with their mindset, helps with them being able to grow their game. And I mean, one of the people we didn't talk about and that young core of the next Warriors that they've been talking about for years. Jordan Poole was a part of that next Warriors crew.
Yep.
Wiggins at one point was a part of that. Jonathan Kuminga, he didn't play a lot to end the year. He struggled a little bit during the season. Didn't play at all in the Rockets series. But Steve Kerr had him in there in the Timberwolves series, and he really shined in some of
He
those games.
did.
Now, what do you think about Kuminga and how there's there's always a conversation around Kuminga and Steve Kerr doesn't utilize him right. And now he's at his highest peak that he's seen so far and at the stage where he could get paid some big money that the Warriors won't be able to offer him due to the second apron and everything like that.
Yeah.
Do you think Kuminga is going to be on the Warriors next year, or do you think he's going to chase that bag and go somewhere where he might not win, but he's going to chase a bag?
It's difficult. Money is such a difficult thing for me to foresee about a player. Obviously now that he's going to be that restricted free agent, um, I really, I sort of have doubts almost, to be honest, that he would go and sign for less money with Golden State than he would for a different team that would offer him more. I guess the differential in pay gap is a big factor, how much more he would be offered. But at the same time, I feel like the Warriors is, I mean, obviously he was drafted to Golden State in
Mhm.
2021. I feel as though I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to stick around with the guys that he built close relations with. And I think that as far as utilization goes, he's proven now this season that he can be a threat in the postseason to I think Steve Kerr, I mean, he definitely has to realize that as well now after that both series. And he's still young in his career, so I feel that if he wants to be a part of this um dynasty while he still can, I don't I wouldn't be surprised either way
Mhm.
if he were to choose to stay in the Bay Area. And I just don't want to see him go to a team where it would be a wasted opportunity for him.
Yeah. So right now you're kind of just like it's 50-50, whatever money comes his way from a team.
If it's a substantial amount of money, like a lot of money, I think that he would go to a different team. If it's a relatively like a toss up money wise, then I don't I foresee him staying.
Mm. Yeah, because I think his restricted free agency thing is like 9 million that he would come
Yeah.
back to the Warriors on. I've seen conversations of him being in the 20s and the 15 between
Yeah.
those.
I've seen that as well.
And I've also seen some conversations about him being a part of a trade for the Warriors and being a sign and
Yes.
trade. I saw
Yes.
Nikola Vucevic might be coming to Golden State, but I don't know how I feel about that. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. But
Yeah.
first, what was the biggest hole the Warriors dealt with this year?
um, I mean, getting the obvious one out of the way, injuries. I mean, obviously it sucks to lose your most impactful player at one of the most crucial times. Um, and just losing that force that not every other player can emulate that was really what led to our downfall, like our immediate downfall. Throughout the year, um, I saw some questionable shots by different players, especially in the late game. I think the fatigue is one of those things that plays a role, especially with our older players, like Dre and Curry. Um, I feel like at some points in time, it seemed like the team could have been a little mentally exhausted, if I'm going to be honest. But these are not things that cannot be dealt with in the future. It's just more so something that I noticed this year with just the way our roster was working. There are some situations where I'm like, wow, it doesn't make too much sense.
Mhm.
But what's your input on that?
Yeah, I think for the fatigue situation that you were talking about, late game fatigue from some of the stars, I think that is one of the reasons why you went out and you got Jimmy Butler,
Yeah,
being another clutch scorer next to Curry. We didn't see it much this year in the postseason. In the regular season, we saw it a lot, where they were kind of trading off who was going to be great in the clutch. That is one of the biggest things. I think another one of the biggest things for fatigue is having guys like Buddy Hield being able to hit his shots down the stretch of a game just opens the floor up so much for
yeah,
Jimmy Butler, for if AirPods is on the court, if Moses Moody's on the court, like any one of those guys, if they're on the court and Buddy Hield is hitting their shots, hitting his shots, and Curry's hitting his shots, I mean, it just opens up the floor so much. 3-point shooting has always been what the Warriors thrive off of.
yeah.
And the only real clutch 3-point shooter they have now is Stephen Curry. Klay Thompson was that before. You had Kevin Durant before that. Now it's really just Stephen Curry, sometimes Buddy Hield.
Buddy healed. Yeah,
Jimmy has never been an amazing three-point shooter. He can knock it down every once in a while. And I just think clutchness has to grow within AirPods and
for
Moses
sure.
Moody a little bit. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
one
yeah.
thing that I see with that. The biggest hole, size is something else that I see with the Warriors.
Yep.
Injuries, like you said, it's just an age factor. I mean, when players get up there in age, they're going to deal with injuries a little bit more. It's going to take longer for them to recover from injuries. And hopefully, just the biggest thing you hope for with the Warriors is if they do deal with injuries, you hope it's early on in the season so they can get extended rest, be
Yeah.
super healthy for the postseason. And at that point, some of these younger guys have to keep the Warriors afloat to get them into a position where then they can just rely on their stars. But
Yeah, I think climbing the ladder is a difficult part.
mhm. But size is something that I think the Warriors could handle this offseason. And I
Oh,
mean,
I'd agree.
let's jump into it. So what is your biggest need this offseason? Because when I look at the Warriors, I look at they have some so the Warriors are in a weird position. We'll all admit that.
Yeah.
They're such a weird team to predict. And like I told Charles before, this is all a prediction. None of this is, we're not going to get any of this 100% right. It's just a conversation. It's just from a Warriors fan perspective, what you want them to do, what you think they might do. Nothing crazy. Nothing is out of the realm of possibilities. We saw Luka Doncic get traded this year. Nothing is really out of the realm of possibilities at this point, if you think about it. But for me, when I look at the Warriors, and it's still kind of a tough thing because I've always said the Warriors need a center. But during your dynasty runs, you guys didn't rely on a center. You kind of just picked and chose who you wanted to be in. I mean, there was times where Festus Ezeli was starting, Andrew Bogut was starting at the
Yeah.
later half of his career, Boogie Cousins was there. I mean, you guys never really relied on a center. And now, I mean, last time you guys won the championship, we were talking about it right before we started.
Yeah.
Two centers on the whole roster.
Mhm.
Nemanja Bjelica, who Charles used to love in 2K, and
Not a
Looney.
dominant center.
And Looney. They're not dominant centers. They're not guys that you rely on. They just play their role. Now, the Warriors, you look at Trace Jackson Davis, undersized center.
Smaller guy.
Quentin Post, who does have some size to him, can stretch the floor, which I think fits the Warriors' offense perfectly. They're in a weird situation with size because right now Quentin Post is their only 7 footer, and it's weird. What do you think your biggest need this offseason is?
I've had, as we talked about before starting the podcast, I've had some internal debates about commenting on size just because that 2022 run, dude, we ran Dre at center
Mhm.
for a point in time in that season. So we've always been just an undersized team. However, that Warriors from a couple years ago when we were winning to this Warriors at this modern day, completely different in my opinion. So I think that now at this point in time, looking to a more dominant center that could protect the paint and open up some scoring options on the offense would not be a bad decision. A couple years ago, I would say that, well, we don't really need it. But you know what? At this point in time, I think that size is a big factor that we're going to have to address because many positions actually are undersized to different teams, and it's just it tires players out having to compete with that both on offense and defense. As far as different things that we need to focus on in this offseason, um, I would like to see a little bit more consistency come from shooting for these role players. I'd like to see more efficiency in the way that we work our offense in certain scenarios. Um, But as far as looking to different players, I'd say that it wouldn't be a bad decision to look towards a center,
Hmm.
a
And then
dominant center.
yeah, and then for the shooting aspect that you said, do
Mhm.
you think that comes from an internal thing, like internal development from some of the younger guys? Or do you think you go out and you get some more three-point shooting in the free agency? Because there is some sharpshooters in the free agency market this summer. Do you think you rely more on the internal development, or do you go out there and you get some guys for that three-point shooting?
I'm relying on more internal development personally. I think that it would not be the smartest decision to kick someone to the curb just because they're still relatively inexperienced. I think a lot of the bad lowlights that I saw just came from lack of experience, to be honest. If we can get these players more time on the court during the next season, as well as different drills in the off season, I think that they could be substantially more impactful next year than they were this year. Um,
No, I like
yeah,
that.
that's my take on it.
I think internal development is always an amazing thing that, especially with a team like the Warriors, who have always been reliant on a lot of internal development. They don't go out there, they don't really sign a lot of big free agents. They make moves. I mean, KD was the biggest move they've ever made
Yeah,
in the free agency, but really they sign a lot of smaller deals. Rely on those guys, bank on them developing as players, taking risk on them, and it's worked out. I mean, how many
yeah,
championships you got? Five.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's always something that you rely on with the Warriors. Um, and but size is something that you can't rely on. You can't have internal development in size at this point. And the
No.
biggest thing I look at is the two teams in the finals. They have some undersized players, but they're not in positions like the center position. Miles Turner is a solid 6'11". He might even be 7 foot. And then for the Thunder, they have two 7 footers basically in iHeart and Chet. Having to deal with those when you guys played the Rockets and Steven Adams was dominating the offensive glass. You did slow down Şengün, who is was in his first postseason run, so that
Mhm.
might be something. And he's not super athletic. He's not a big guy. He's 6'10", maybe 6'9". So Draymond can kind of hold his own against him. But Steven Adams did cause
Yeah.
some trouble, and Rudy Gobert also caused some trouble. So, like you said, size is another big thing. Getting a dominant center on the defensive end and the offensive end, and just relying on getting a guy that can hold his own against some of the centers in the Western Conference.
I think that the Western Conference, there's just so much talent and size at the center area
Mhm.
that when you're a playoff contending team and you go in with a center that's not necessarily, well, yeah, I guess I'm gonna say it, like lacking in that end. No hate towards anyone. It's just it becomes a vulnerability,
Yeah.
especially on defense. And I think that there were different games where it started to create some holes in our defense for sure.
Mhm.
And it was quite obvious actually.
Yeah, I mean the two teams in the Western Conference that
Yeah.
made the postseason that didn't have a center was the Warriors and the Lakers. And the
Yep.
Lakers got bounced in the first round by Rudy Gobert with a 2020 game to close out that series. And then
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves
Yep.
bounced the Warriors out again. And
Yep.
Rudy is not a offensive superstar. He is just
No.
an amazing defender with 7'2" size. It's just something that you can't compete with when you have like Trace Jackson Davis, who I
Yeah.
like Trace Jackson Davis. I think he's really good. I think he's a good, solid like bench center that you could bring in and give you some hustle minutes. Looney obviously is like a fan favorite in the Bay Area and was a key contributor to you guys winning that
He
championship.
was. He
I mean,
was.
I remember watching this dude just get every offensive rebound when they were playing the Celtics and I believe they played the Nuggets series before, I think. I can't fully remember, but I just remember Looney was killing it on the offensive
He
glass.
was.
Now, obviously, Looney is a free agent this summer. Some of the free agents coming up this year. So this offseason, you got Braxton Key, Kevin Knox, Jonathan Kuminga, who's a restricted free agent, Kevon Looney, Gary Payton II, Quentin Post, who has a team option, Gui Santos, who has a team option, Pat Spencer, who has is just a free agent, and Teron Armstrong, who I don't think we don't have to have a conversation about Braxton Key, Kevin Knox, Pat Spencer, Teron Armstrong. We don't have to have a conversation about those. But the four, Kuminga, Looney, Gary Payton II, Quentin Post, and Gui Santos, I think those five are a solid conversation that we could talk about because Quentin Post and Gui Santos both having team options. Those contracts are really, really cheap if you look at them. I think they're like, yeah, Gui Santos is 2.2 million player option coming this summer.
Yep.
I think the Warriors are just gonna pick that up and not even think twice about it. I mean, he gave you some solid minutes throughout this year. I mean, he's never going to be probably a consistent role player, but if there is anybody that ever goes down with an injury, you can just throw him in. And then I don't see Quentin Post on the payroll, but since he's a second round pick, I'm gonna expect that it's might be even cheaper than 2.2 million, or it might be around there.
1.9.
Yeah, 1.9 for a guy that
Yeah.
started some postseason games for you, you're obviously gonna pick that up.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I don't see why we wouldn't for that amount of money.
So those two coming back next year. Now, Gary Payton II and Kevon Looney are both unrestricted free agents. Now,
Ah,
two people that both made their name in Golden State. Gary Payton bounced around a lot, but then he got to Golden State, became a defender for you guys, won a championship, and now he's sitting at a free agency. Now he was kind of on a bigger contract the last couple of years. What do you think Gary Payton II does this postseason, or what do you think the Warriors do? Do you think they bring him back, or do you think it's a reliant on the money kind of thing? Because I look at him. I mean, he was just on I think 9.8 million this past year, 9.1.
9.1. He's above Buddy Hield.
Mm-hmm. But that was a player option. That was the only
That's
thing.
true. Yeah.
So obviously, he accepted that player option last off season. Now he's an unrestricted free agent. He's a little bit older, kind of deals with some injuries at points. Do you
Um,
think he comes back to the Warriors on a cheaper contract?
I don't think he comes back to the Warriors, to be
No.
honest. Um, I just don't foresee it happening because when I'm not saying that he was an important part about our run. He's a great perimeter defender. At the same time, though, I'm looking to different players at this point in time. If I'm going to be honest, I'm looking towards different players that can score more buckets than him. Um, he averaged under 5 points a game. So I'm no hate to him. I think he's a great player, but I think that his place is elsewhere than Golden State
Mhm.
at this point in time. I just don't see him fitting into our payroll. I mean, I mean, like I said before, it's all dependent on what the money would be, but definitely not at just around 10 mil.
Yeah, I don't think I think Gary Payton got his bag with the Warriors, and now he is somebody that I think would come back on a cheap contract. You guys paid him a bigger contract, and now I could see him coming back on a vet minimum for a couple years, which is
If it's a minimum,
2 to 3
I could
million.
foresee it.
I think the vet minimum is between 2 to 3 million right now. Might
Okay.
be a little bit higher than that, but I could definitely see Gary Payton II coming back on a vet minimum. And I mean, even if he doesn't play, he's just kind of a guy that if you ever need to put him in, you know what you're gonna get from him. That's what
That's
I look
true.
at with Gary Payton. He's never been an amazing shooter, even on the Warriors. You never relied on his three-point shooting.
Nope.
But he is a good, solid positional defender. Even at 6'2", we've seen him lock up some forwards, and I just think he'll be a guy that you just continue to bring back until it kind of just fades away. When Curry, Draymond, Butler all fade away, he'll be a part of that kind of conversation. Now, Kevon Looney, he's been on the team for a long time, and he's finally a free agent. What does Looney do this offseason?
I think what Looney does and what Golden State wants to do are two very different things. I mean, I don't want to contradict myself in the fact that I just said we need to look towards getting a more sizable center, getting a more offensive threat worthy center. Um, but at the same time, I don't want to let my fan bias take it over. I love Looney Tunes though.
Hmm.
He's you know, I've consistently I love to see him turn up in that 2022 playoff run. Um, it's a tough decision, but I don't know. I feel like foresee the Warriors looking elsewhere.
Hmm.
It's so hard to say though because he has been a part of the team for longer than many people realize. Even though he didn't play earlier on, even back, he was still on the team when James Wiseman was on the team. He's been here. So it is tough to break that relationship for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Looney was drafted 2017, maybe. He was a part
Yeah.
of the end of the dynasty run with Kevin Durant.
Yes.
I think he was on one championship team and then the team that lost to the Raptors and then won a championship in 2022 where he
Mhm.
was a key contributor.
Yeah, he became more of a contributor down the line in his run with the Warriors.
And
Um,
obviously, like you said, Looney is a fan favorite in
he
Golden State.
is. He
Is
definitely
100% a
is.
fan favorite. And even just from an NBA fan, I like watching Kevon Looney because he hustles for everything.
My grandma likes Kevon Looney.
And you said James Wiseman. I forgot to bring this up.
Yeah.
If the Pacers win the championship this year, your boy James Wiseman gets a ring. I think he played a solid 3 minutes this whole year before he tore his Achilles.
I'll be honest, I forgot he was even on that team.
I mean, he only played 3 minutes this whole year. He got tore his Achilles game one, which was sad to see. I'm
It
not
was
gonna
sad.
lie.
Yeah.
He is a guy that's dealt with injuries. Warriors, everybody thought he was going to be amazing with the Warriors.
Yeah.
Just couldn't live up to the hype, especially due to injuries. But man, it would be cool to see James Wiseman get a ring, even though he doesn't really do anything for the Pacers. But obviously, we've talked about Kuminga. Anything else you want to say about Kuminga being one of the final 2025 free agents that you got?
It's tough because I think that he's so much potential lies within Kuminga. I mean, we've seen just this exponential upward trend with him since his point of drafting. I mean, I think he's, despite the arguments about Kerr not knowing how to play him, I think that just he could be a crucial he could be a crucial threat for the Warriors. It's just salary is the main thing. I mean,
Mm,
I can't fault Kuminga for wanting to look towards better paying options.
yeah, 100%. Now, for the 2026 free agency class, you have Draymond Green with a player option, which is worth 27.6 million. You have Trace Jackson Davis with a team option that's 2.4 million. And you have Jackson Rowe. We don't need to talk about Jackson Rowe. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
a G League guy, two-way player. Draymond and Trace Jackson Davis, though, are two pretty solid talking points. We'll start with Draymond. That
Okay.
is going to be a pretty hefty pay for a guy that's going to be what 37, I think
I
next
believe so. He's
next
in his
summer.
high 30s.
So, what do you think you guys do with Draymond in that $24.6 million player option?
Well, man, despite everything, I don't know if Golden State would be willing to. I know it's a huge chunk of our like salary cap, but I
Mhm.
also don't think that the Warriors are ready to get rid of him because just yet, maybe very soon after, but I feel that as far as chemistry goes, I guess maybe so just his longevity aspect that he's been on the team for that many years. I feel like I mean, I guess I said this about Clay, but I feel like he's gonna finish as a Warrior. Um, however, if I were to change things, um, I don't think that he's worth $27.6 million.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not something that I can change. So at this point in time, I think that he's just gonna stick around until the end of his career, which may be in the near future.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, with a player option, he can opt out of the player option and then still re-sign with the Warriors for a cheaper contract,
Yeah,
which is something that I could see Draymond doing. But another thing I could see Draymond doing is, even though he is Warriors day in and day out, he's from Michigan. The Pistons are back kind of on a roll. Hopefully next year they're still on a roll. And also, I mean, this is a really big hypothetical, but he's always said that he's wanted to play with LeBron. He's had very high praise for LeBron. And I mean, there's a chance that he could link up with LeBron and Luca in LA.
I see.
But
Um,
I mean, those are all speculation, and what kind of happens in this next year, I think, is something that you have to look at with that as well.
I don't I don't know if other teams would be able to offer Draymond the contract that he would expect for himself though. What's your
Mhm.
thought? Like, do you agree with me or
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with Draymond because he's never really been a guy that has really expected a lot of money, I feel like. I mean, even
that's true.
on this contract he's on right now, I mean, 24 million from Draymond is still a pretty decent contract.
Yeah,
Because you have to he got that probably right after they won the championship.
yeah,
So his value was at an all-time high. And but I mean, I think the biggest thing is how this next season goes for the Warriors.
yeah,
If they are still in championship contention, I don't think he's ever gonna get rid of that. But
yeah.
if it looks like Curry's gonna retire, he's deteriorating. Jimmy Butler's not what you expected, and maybe something with Jimmy happens, then maybe Draymond looks to leave. But I think what you said is the most logical thing that's gonna happen, and what we can predict is gonna happen most likely is he's gonna end being a Warrior.
Yeah.
I think he's just he's he is the heart and soul of the Golden State
He
Warriors.
really is.
I mean, Curry is the star, but without Draymond, Curry is not as much of Stephen Curry as he is now.
Yeah, there are
The
two peas in a pod on offense,
the
that's for
pick and
sure.
roll, the dribble handoffs, the screen setting by Draymond, the being able to control the ball as a forward, just limiting the stress that Steph Curry has to have. I mean, Steph Curry, I mean, he would still be an amazing player, but he wouldn't be as impactful and to the level that he still is at now without Draymond.
I agree.
Something that I see.
which is why I foresee him staying around for a bit longer.
Hmm.
I just dude's been around for over a decade,
Hmm.
and just to up and out him like towards the end of his career, it just doesn't seem like something that Kerr or Draymond would want,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, 100%. Now, the other person in the 2026 free agency class, as of so far, is Trace Jackson Davis with a team option.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it all depends on what you kind of do this offseason with the center position. And if Quentin Post continues to take that stride into taking minutes away from Looney and TJD. So that one's kind of, you could bring him back for 2.4 million and just have a bench center, which I think is what the Warriors will do. Or you could let him walk and let him find his own home somewhere else. What do you think the Warriors do with Trace Jackson Davis in
This one
free agency?
this one's a pretty easy one for me. Sorry to cut you off there.
Oh, you're okay.
This one's a pretty easy one for me. I think the Warriors keep him. 2.4 million, like to the average person's a lot, but to the Golden State Warriors, it's not a huge percentage of our salary cap. I don't see what the reason to kick him to the curb would be. Um, Obviously, he's 25 years old. He uh still has plenty of time to progress, and maybe getting him some playing time during the um preseason, or not preseason, sorry,
Regular season.
regular season, my bad, as we were talking about earlier. um it would just progress him as a player, and it's not like it's a massive gap. Looking like the It's a pretty linear payroll gap or increase from the last 2 years, so
Hmm.
I don't see why we wouldn't re-sign.
Yeah. All right. So we've gone through the Warriors free agency. We've talked about some things that you think they need to work on. I've brought my own things that I think they need to work on. I'm going to give you some free agents for some of the positions that we talked about. And
Okay.
I want you to let me know which one you like the most. Now, for the center and size position, there's a lot of pretty solid centers on the market this offseason. Some of the big names I look at, I mean, Steven Adams, amazing offensive rebounder, really good positional size, and really solid screen setter. Now, the defensive end, he's not an amazing shot blocker, but he's a big body down there, and he's gonna bang with some of the best. He's somebody that I look at as the Warriors could go after him in the post or in the offseason. Nikola Vucevic is also somebody that's been linked to the Warriors. Good positional size, about 6'11", 7 foot, can stretch the floor, really good rebounder. Um, some cheaper options. Andre Drummond is going to be on the free agency market if he doesn't accept his player option. He's 6'10", but he's one of the best rebounders the game's ever seen. Even at his 32-year-old age, he's
Mhm.
still a really good defender or a really good rebounder. And then some of the other, I mean, Luke Cornett for the Celtics, good positional size. He's kind of always been a career backup, so we don't really know exactly what to expect from him in a starting position. What do you think about those options, or do you have somebody else in mind that you're looking at the center position?
I think that taking a gamble with Cornette would not be the smartest decision. I mean, even though the Warriors are known for it, I feel like we're giving up a center where we know everything about him for someone that I just stumbled for someone that we do not know
Hmm.
much about. I just don't think that that's a smart decision at this point in time, especially when we're trying to supplement these stars while they still have time left for the team. I mean, say we go sign someone new that we don't know much about,
Hmm.
and they flop in the postseason, and then that costs our stars a championship.
Hmm.
I wouldn't like to see that happen. Someone like Steven Adams, I'd really think could be a great asset to our team. I just don't know how the payroll would work out for that. Because what
So
do you know what his current salary was in the 2025
so
season?
this
24.
past year he made around 12 million,
Okay.
and that was coming off the bench for the Houston Rockets. Now the Warriors can offer their mid-level exception is their biggest contract offer that they can offer, which I
Oh,
think is about 12.6 million, somewhere in that range. So he would kind of be on the brink of taking an offer, not taking an offer, how much you can offer him. Andre Drummond is a little bit of a cheaper option. Struggled with some injuries this past year, but you know when he's on the court what you're going to get on the offensive end. Now, another thing I look at with centers is it's always tough to find a center that's really going to fit with the Warriors.
yeah,
Just being such a perimeter centric team, 3-point shooting all around, it's really tough to pick and choose who's really going to work out there. And that's another reason why the Warriors have never relied on a center. They know what they're going to get from their guys, and they stay consistent with their guys because that's what they know what they're going to get.
yeah,
I think Nikola Vucevic is probably the best option, but it is also very difficult to get him. You'd have to
yeah,
give up Kuminga, which obviously Kuminga is still a younger guy, but either you're gonna lose him and not get anything in return, or he's gonna come back and then you don't know really what you're gonna get in return. He might go back to what he was pre postseason or
mm,
pre Timberwolves run. So he's somebody that is kind of a big question mark in this whole thing. And it's
I agree.
also what teams value him as. Now the Bulls, I could see them really taking a chance on Jonathan Kuminga, and I mean they've kind of been trying to move Vooch out the door. I mean, going to DePaul, having a lot of Chicago Bulls fans in the station,
Yeah.
they despise Nikola Vucevic and they want him off their team. Now, I mean, if the Warriors can get him, that would be a super solid move, but it's still a big question mark on who would fit with the Warriors. Now, something you said, 3-point shooting, consistent 3-point shooting next to your stars. You already have Buddy Hield, who at times he isn't lights out, one of the best shooters we've seen. But then there's times where he goes through a really tough stretch. Some of the 3-point shooters that I'm looking at on the market, Luke Kennard from the Memphis Grizzlies. He's been a super solid shooter all his career. Didn't play much for the Grizzlies to end the year, so his value is pretty low right now.
Mm.
Malik Beasley, who you pointed out for the Detroit Pistons, is a free agent this year.
Oh,
Now
is he?
that 6 million that he made last year is probably going to go up a lot in the sense
Yeah.
that he was made the second most threes in the league last season, but that is somebody that you could look at. And then Seth Curry, Seth and Steph on the court, that is super fire to see. I'm not gonna lie. I could just see the Warriors bringing him in just to have him on the team. But I mean, Damian Lee dude is also on the market. I mean, these are some guys that you could look at trying to bring in. Anybody that you see in the 3-point shooting market that you want to see in a Warriors uniform, or any of the people that I named you want to see?
Um, I think that Malik Beasley was a good point that you made. I think his cap is going to be a little bit too high to be realistic for us at this point in time, especially since we have Buddy Hield at the moment.
Mhm.
Um, I think that Luke Kennard could be a good option to look towards. Um, just because, he hasn't really gotten his opportunity to get a bunch of playing time,
Mhm.
but I feel the Warriors could give him a new opportunity. I also just think that Buddy Hield in general, I'm looking towards him to step up as a player in this next year because I think that he can be a good um I mean, I see shines of Klay Thompson in him in some of those games where he gets really hot,
Hmm.
and I it's he's a really fun player for me to watch. So I'm more so focusing on Buddy Hield in that aspect.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, 100%. I think Buddy Hield is the biggest. If he has an amazing year next year, the Warriors are going to be a really tough team to stop. And I think the transition from a bad year in Philly, where he was really bad, to then move to the Warriors, who rely so much on three-point shooting, was a big change. But having another full offseason to get ready for the Warriors offense, it's going to help him out. And I just think one of the biggest things I think with Buddy Hield is Steve Kerr and the coaching staff can't look at Buddy Hield as Klay Thompson. They need to look at him as Buddy Hield, who can
Yeah,
do similar things to Klay Thompson, but don't put that name tag on him that
I agree.
this is the next Klay Thompson. That's
Yeah,
the thing I look at with him.
I don't think he deserves that. He's his own player with his own accomplishments and his own stats. So I feel like putting him in the shadow of a former Warrior is not not the best decision. When I said like shines of Klay Thompson, I meant
Mhm.
more so like just as pure shooting wise, not so as a player. Just like it more so gives me the enjoyment as a fan of
Mhm.
seeing some lights out shooting.
Yeah, no, no, I got what you said is in like you see like when Buddy Hield is hot, you get flashbacks of Klay
Yeah,
Thompson just flying off a screen and just letting it fly.
yeah.
I just think sometimes the coaching staff in Golden State tries to play Buddy Hield too much like Klay Thompson when he's his own player.
And maybe that's something we could express and work on in this
Mhm.
off season, just how to better prioritize Buddy Hield's skill set on offense. Um, it's obviously not something that's impossible to do.
Yeah, no. I mean, Steve Kerr has branched out of a lot of players, got them to be really solid three-point shooters, and I just think it's time with Buddy Hield, just
I
getting
agree.
used to the offense. Now, something else with the Warriors, if Gary Payton does decide to leave in the offseason, some perimeter defending would be something that you want to look at. Some forwards that I look at on the market, um, Trendon Watford. I'm not sure if you're really familiar with his game. He's been in Brooklyn the last couple of years. He's pretty solid defender, and he kind of plays like a little Draymond Green. He does a lot of dribble handoffs, sets some really solid screens.
Okay.
Torian Prince from Milwaukee,
Yep.
one of their better defenders this past 2 years. And then other than that, I mean, if Kelly Oubre opts out of his player option, that's somebody that you can maybe look at.
A former Warrior.
Former Warrior. But yeah, I mean, is there anybody that you look at for perimeter defense, or is this something that it's kind of just a go with the flow kind of guys that you get?
I would love to see a new face focus on perimeter defense. But at the same time, looking at the options at the moment, I don't know is that we have many people to turn to that would be worth tossing into our lineup at this point in time. I think that it's another one of those situations where I think that our players this year left a lot on the table that
Mhm.
could be reworked. And I think that if the kinks get worked out, then we won't need another player to fulfill that gap. Um, I think that definitely a lot of learning can be done from Draymond as far as defense goes, and just our players' improvements will dictate whether or not, like, it'll be quite obvious if it's going to work next season, in my opinion, or not. I think it'll stand right out.
Yeah, and again, I just think one of the biggest things is like a guy like Moses Moody could be that really solid perimeter defender you got.
Yeah.
Just kind of learning and sitting there and picking the brain of Draymond and Jimmy Butler is something that could fulfill a lot of these guys' positions on the team and just getting out there, learning from these guys, and setting yourself up to learn and lean into that defensive minded role on the team. Now, we've talked about the Warriors offseason guide, and I want to thank Charles for being here. But final question.
Okay.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is on the trade market this year. Now, there's some reports that he's now stuck, like he's sticking to Milwaukee. He's staying with Milwaukee. Do you think by the time I bring you back on for the Warriors' reaction to the offseason, bringing in their free agents, reaction to everything, do you think Giannis will be moved, or do you think he's still going to be in Milwaukee?
Moved as in moved to the Warriors, or what are you talking? Like
Oh,
just
just like
moved in
moved in
general.
general.
Okay,
I
okay,
mean, there was
okay.
conversations of him maybe moving to Golden State. I did see a
Yeah,
couple
I did see
mock
that.
trades there, but one thing, Mike Dunleavy Jr. is one of the, I think he's the GM of the Warriors now after Bob Myers stepped down.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with the clip of young Giannis absolutely plowing into that dude. That was Dunleavy Jr. Giannis
Oh,
tried to beat up Mike Dunleavy Jr.
I did not realize that was
And I
him.
think Giannis's rookie or one of his first seasons ever, and that was Mike Dunleavy. So we'll see, maybe. But what do you think of the Giannis situation? Where do you think he's gonna be, or do you think he's just gonna stick in Milwaukee?
I think I don't think he's going to Golden State. I think it would be completely polarizing our fan base to see because what we'd have to give up to get Giannis.
Mm.
Um, I don't foresee him leaving Milwaukee at this point in time. Obviously, I can eat my own words in a couple of months, but um, it's just when I picture the Bucks, I always pictured Giannis as sort of one of those untouchables, as
Mm.
just they would just remain where they wanted to remain. Like, has there been any rumors of the fact that he wants out of Milwaukee?
Well, it came out that Giannis went to the front office and that he said he was open to exploring his options outside of Milwaukee. Now, some of the landing spots was San Antonio was somewhere teaming him up with Wemby, Houston teaming him up with that young core, Toronto because the GM of Toronto is like a super big Giannis fan. He was
Gotcha.
super high on him coming out of the draft, and he even cried when he couldn't draft Giannis. That's how much he believed in him. And New York, the Knicks are also an option for Giannis. But now, in the past couple of days, it's come back that Giannis is kind of more leaning towards sticking firm with Milwaukee.
I think at this point in time, um, he's gonna stay with Milwaukee. Um, you saying that he would be open to exploring different options. Yeah, I genuinely think he meant that,
Mm.
just obviously not all players want to have that specific mindset that they want to remain with this team for the rest of their career. However, I just don't foresee him leaving Milwaukee. I don't know what it is. It's just something inside me just doesn't, I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
Hmm.
Maybe later on.
I mean, one of the biggest things, the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
I
He could
agree.
leave Milwaukee, ruin everything that he's already created. I mean, it's between him and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the best Milwaukee Buck of all time.
Yeah.
So you could either give that up and have a chance to go somewhere and make a name, or you could give it up and it flops. So it's always just you gotta weigh your pros and cons. Now, is there anything you have to end the show, Charles? Any questions? Anything for the off season?
Well, I'm excited. I just wanted to make the comment that I'm excited to see the um the different comments that you're going to be making on I'm sure some very interesting things will be happening this offseason. Maybe not as interesting as that Luca trade, but no, I'll be
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing what you have to say about everything and I wish all the viewers stay tuned in as well. But I appreciate you having me on this podcast, man. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. You got shout out your Instagram or got anything to shout out?
Nah, I'll remain on the humble side.
All right. I'll still put Charles' Instagram in the description. So
Sounds
make
good.
sure you go follow Charles,
I
check him out,
appreciate it.
see his reactions to the Warriors stuff. He will be back after the offseason is over with. This has been Beyond the Scoreboard, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons.